Welcome to the Sixth Cast, a podcast where we discuss real-world strategies, tips, and stories that provide helpful insights for your digital transformation experience.
Hello again, welcome to the 12th episode of Sixth Cast on this beautiful spring day in March. Well, we haven't seen many desirable warm days so far, but at least the days are longer. Today, I have a long-time friend of mine, a young, successful, and vibrant entrepreneur, Subodha Senevirathne, the founder and CEO of Sharpline Mechanical. Subodha, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
Before I let Subodha introduce himself, let me give a quick introduction about myself. Subodha and I met somewhere in 2009, I would say, maybe 2010, where he was a young man going to UFT taking engineering. Our history was a pretty memorable one, I would say. We were fortunate to do many socially impactful endeavors. We had some great mentors, and as a result, we did numerous blood drives, food drives, tree planting events, and leadership development activities, and many, many more. And of course, lots of fun along the way. Road trips, some of them became memorable ones for me particularly. We'll talk about that in another episode. I tried to look for a couple of good pictures of Subodha and me, but I was not really lucky because I think he was not a big fan of being on camera.
A shy boy. Nice. Yeah, shy boy.
Some of the nice couple of pictures of Subodha and me and a few of our friends back in the days. Anyway, Subodha and I started our businesses around the same time. In 2016, he started somewhere in January. I think I started somewhere in March, April. And we had some professional engagements as well. Sharpline was one of my first clients, and we developed his first website and his brand portfolio, his logo. He's used to date is something that our team developed, something that I'm really proud of. Yeah. And his company tendered some services to me as well over the past few years. And 7 years fast forward, he has converted his startup into a successful enterprise. And without further ado, let me pass it over to Subodha to share a bit about your story. Tell me, the first question, Subodha, is going to be a loaded one. Tell me a bit about yourself and who you are, how your life journey has been, and what do you want to achieve in life, and what impacts do you want to make in the world?
Yeah, so Waruna, thank you for inviting me. I'm so glad to be here just to share some of our knowledge. And like you said, it was really nice to, we both started in a small place where with our temple, and we did a lot of community service. And at the time we didn't really realize what kind of leadership skills that brought in us, because sometimes we'd have to prepare speeches the night before to present to one of the Canadian Cancer Society, and sometimes I would be so nervous going in front of people, and I had you guys and obviously the older crowd, especially Roshana, they would say think about everybody having their eyes closed. So they would give us different tactics. So over the years, you develop leadership skills, but at the time, you don't think those are skills that you need to develop. So going back to where it all began. So my parents, they're immigrants. They came here. We came here when it was 2000. My dad had a heart attack back home. And they said you have to wait at least 2 years to get the bypass. So, and my mom, if anyone knows my mom, she's the backbone of our entire family. She makes sure everything gets done on time. And if she puts her mind into something, it gets done. So she decided to come to Canada for our education and also to get his bypass done. So, which was really interesting. And when we came here after 3 months, a few weeks later, my dad did his bypass, so everything went okay. And ever since then, we've been here. And I remember when my dad when he started working, every day we would hear news, not typically good news, because sometimes he would go to work, either he would get laid off, or they would say, your qualification's not good, or he would find out that his engineering background back home weren't valid, so he would have to start working at factories just to make ends meet, right? So from a young age, I never had trust in the system. I never had trust in working because all my life I saw my parents getting laid off, not having quote unquote a job for security. So while growing up with a bunch of my friends, we used to do car sales and stuff when we were young. We didn't have our license or anything. We would use the arbitrage of different markets. So we would buy stuff from Brampton and we would sell it in Toronto market just to make a quick buck or something. So one day I actually had to tell my dad that I illegally had parked one of the cars in our driveway. So I had to take it back. So so it's always been there in the back of my head. So once I finished engineering, I never wanted to go work at a full-time job. But my parents, they said, why don't you go and get some skills that you can be professional, right? So after a few years at CNO, I didn't like the whole everyone there were waiting for retirement. So they would, give up their 30 years of life just to wait for that final retirement. And I saw that as something far-fetched and something that I wasn't going to do just because I saw a problem in that, right? So fast forward to today, I left that company and then I started, my dad was doing this on the side, so I started full-time. And when I first started full-time, my parents weren't happy. My mom thought I had gone mad because I left a good engineering job. Now I'm back in the field with, coveralls and muddy hands. And she's like, what's wrong with you? So, fast forward to here but it just, when something doesn't fit with your lifestyle and, it's hard for you to stay in that role. So that kind of made me, I had a lot of time when we were there. So I started, what I feel like is we have the wrong information. So when we have the wrong information, we don't act towards what needs to happen. So all this time, while I had time, I used to listen to podcasts and books and read books and all these things, which actually helped me change the way I saw life, or particularly how the wrong information that we had, right? Because we get our information from our parents, our friends who are also in middle class and are the poor or middle class. So you can't really get the right information to be successful with people around you, because 5 friends around you are the net sum of your net worth, right?
That is very interesting, Subodha. You talked about you were affected by your parents getting laid off all the time and not having the job security. I think it was, back in the days, maybe 10, 15 years ago, it was a lot difficult for immigrants than today, what it is today right now. Lots of most recent immigrants, they find their jobs, dream jobs, within a couple of months, which is fantastic. But it was not the case those days.
No.
And you were in the midst of global meltdown, economic meltdown in 2008 to 9 to 10, when you were, I think, in the university as well, and that was like, what am I doing? And why am I going to the university? Why am I becoming an engineer? Just to be able to pay the rent or pay the mortgage and just be happy, be mediocre.
Yeah, and I also feel like people that came here in the beginning, they put a landscape or foundation for everybody who's immigrating now, because the truth of the matter is you can go to your church or your temple and you say, I'm looking for a job. In a week you'll find a job, because everyone's trying to help. People, especially Sri Lankans, are in a good stage right now. They're either directors or in companies or VPs, or they have a good foot in the door. So it's a matter of just passing your resume on, right? So I think that's a huge benefit, because back in 2000s and 80s and 70s, you barely had any immigrants in the workforce, yet alone upper management and leadership, right? So I think things have gotten better, and especially with social media, you're able to attract and get your word out there, and you can do more research before you come here. So sometimes there are guys that have jobs lined up before they even get here, versus when you're in 2000, we didn't even know what Canada was. Forget about jobs. When my parents said we're going to Canada, I thought it was in the skies, right? Because when you're little, you think it's in the clouds, right?
Yeah.
So I think a lot of information, there's accessibility for information, and it makes a lot of the new immigrants are more equipped when they come here.
Right. that is an interesting point. The following question is not quite on the list of things that I wanted to ask, but I think we're going to a good kind of a sidetrack here, but it is important. Do you think that immigrants, mostly the most recent immigrants, they have enough resources and opportunities in the country to be what they want to be, following a career at another company, or do your own follow your passion and do your own business, whether it's a small business, opening up a shop, or doing a tech business, or going into an engineering or home residential and commercial contracting business like you are in. Do you think lots of opportunities are there, or there should still be some changes?
Yeah. So I actually read the slide deck that you sent me, and it was an interesting slide that I saw. It said business is not a zero-sum game. So just because I help you start your business doesn't mean I'm going to lose out. It's a positive sum game, meaning the opportunity is endless. It's just what kind of you have to think about what is doable, what's possible, because anything is possible and the opportunities are endless. And as soon as you get the right information, you realize the biggest opportunities that are out there and still not tapped.
Right. And you think anyone who persevere, whether they are an immigrant or they are non-immigrant, you think opportunities are still there?
Opportunities are there. The character. So I think entrepreneurship, I like to the difference between entrepreneurship and business, owning a business, you're focused more on capital. So if I invested $1,000, I want to get the return. So that's a business owner mentality. But I feel like in entrepreneurship is when you see a problem, you look for solutions. That's more of an entrepreneurial journey. And there are a lot of problems out in the world. So it's a matter of seeing those problems and addressing and finding the solutions for that.
Right. Okay.
So so perseverance is big because you have to put your mind into one thing and kind of do it every single day, whether you see an outcome or not. It's just persevering and basically doing the boring work, because you have to do the boring work.
Right. That's an important part. So do you think if you want to be an entrepreneur, if you want to own a business, do you suggest being focused on one thing at a time, or trying out several things?
So I think you have to first find out what drives your soul, like what makes you get up at night, wake up in the morning. It has to be more than money, because money solves money issues, it doesn't really solve other issues. So if you're depressed, a person that's depressed, money's not going to solve that. So you really have to dig deep inside and figure out what you can really do. And it can't. What I've figured is it can't be about yourself. It has to be something more than that. When your goal is not yourself and for somebody else, I think it drives you differently, and you always know that there's somebody that you're trying to serve or trying to do. Because if you don't voice what you have to say, maybe they might lose out, maybe they might miss an opportunity, right?
Right. Now, why don't you take a step back to go back to your entrepreneurship journey, how you started the business. Everybody has a unique story, in my opinion. Every business does. But in my perspective, entrepreneurs have the most vivid kind of journey. They go through a lot than an average person would. Again, I don't want to stereotype again. We have respect for everyone's journey, everyone's challenges and hardships and successes. Talking about your journey, becoming an entrepreneur, building a business, and seeing where you are from being a young university student at UFT. Not many people get to go to UFT, as we all know. Getting the first job as an engineer, it was you're set for life, pretty much, right? Mm-hmm. And that's what your parents used to say as well, or my parents at least used to say. Now changing the gears to become a business person, starting your own heating and cooling business, not the typical job that many within our circles or communities would pursue. And you tried different versions of the business. Now, how did you break the stereotypes and continue with your journey? Did you get any social pressures?
Yeah, so obviously when I first quit my job, I didn't tell my parents. They didn't know. So 2016 January, so December, I had everything. 2015 December, I had told my employer that I won't be coming in. I'll take all the sick leave and I won't see you, right? So I was on vacation, January break, and then my mom's like, aren't you going to work? I said, no, I quit. So that was kind of a shock to her, but I had to do that in order to pursue what I wanted to, because if I got permission, she would have never given me permission. And that's fair in her sense, because, you know, she did a lot to get us where we were, and she didn't want us to throw everything away. But yeah, I mean, it wasn't easy. Like I said, when I first went into my job, I already saw a problem with it, because the guys that were retiring, who were in their 65s, they're like, I got to wait 3 more years to pack up my pension. And I didn't want to wait 30 years to pack up my pension, right? So I already saw a problem with it, and everyone was just selling everybody on the pensions. So whether it was right or wrong decision, I thought to myself, you know, I can always find an engineering job if I wanted to. So I can only take this leap right now, because once I start having family and kids and stuff like that, it's just going to be second priority or third priority. So it would never get done. So I had to make that jump during that. And I just did it because, you know, as Jeff Bezos say, you on your deathbed, you'll probably be regretting the chances that you didn't take rather than the ones you did take.
That's a great line, Subodha. Same thing with me as well. When I was starting my business 2016, I was going into a very stressful period of my life. I was doing my MBA. We had a child, and my wife was expecting another child in 2017. We were moving, we were traveling. It was the best years, pretty much. At the same time, so intense. And I was not quite happy where I was. I had a great career plan when I was in Sri Lanka. It broke in 2008 when I came to Canada. I did a lot of good things from 2008 to 9 to 2015, but then it was becoming too stale. I was not happy. I knew that I could do a lot more. Yeah. And I was like, what do I do? Should I start a business now? And I started the business in 2016. I was end of the first semester of the MBA, and I had almost 3.5 more years to go. Lots of family things are happening. I do not stop as well. And at that time, I thought, I want to be able to tell my kids one day, even if I don't become successful, that I tried. I tried enough. Yeah. Right? In my opinion, the success is not a destination, it's a process. You live on it every day. Yeah. And it's about how happy you are in that process. As you said, what wakes you up in the morning, what keeps you wake up at night as well sometimes. Yeah. Right? So that's my thing as well. I was, you know what, should I do it? Maybe I should do it now. And I dumped a whole bunch of education loans for my MBA into the business, and I was like, how am I going to pay this back? You know, I'm going to have to pay almost $7,000 to $8,000, I think, per month for the course. How am I going to pay? But I kept paying. It was a risk, but I wanted to be able to reflect when I'm 50, 60, 70, and say, oh, you know what? I tried my best, even if I didn't. If I couldn't get where I wanted to be, I'm happy that I took all those risks. Now, how did your friend circles see your move? I was like a little puzzled as well at the time. You had a nice job. You were an engineer. I think you're still at some point recent graduate, maybe a few years into the career. And I saw, why is he doing? And this is the mentality even that we are brought up with. Why Subodha is leaving an engineering job at a nuclear power plant, it was, if I remember.
Yeah.
And to do start a heating and cooling business, residential and commercial, obviously. Initially, I think it was mostly residential, if I understand right. And is he for real? Is he going to do it for a couple of months and go back to a job? I was like that too. So how did your circles, friend circles, maybe family as well, did they support or did they not support you?
Yeah, so when my friends used to come over, I would tell them about the books that I read. I would there's a special book that I came across. I think it was called DeMarco. Anyways, basically he talked about the internet and how you can actually, it's like I said, we have the wrong information, because if I come and tell you that, not me, say somebody comes out to a stage and tells you, hey, I made $2 million a month, either you believe him or you don't believe him, or you think, I don't know enough to judge him yet. So those are the three opinions or things that anyone who does it, right? But the thing is, when someone comes with me, I always have a if he can do it, I can do it, but how do I do it, right? So I went to a conference in the US about 2017, and there was a guy, he was a very introvert guy. He comes on stage and he makes $2 million in about 45 minutes. And instead of me, the typical answer would be, I think he's fake, or he's, usually when people see salespeople, it's either, he's scammy or he's not true, right? But with mine, I was just like, if he does it, let me figure out how, because it's a belief that I had. I believe that, hey, 100,000 a year is the maximum I can make. But when someone comes and tells me they made $2 million a month, now it changes my perspective, because I believe him. So what I do is I consume everything that he's put out. Whether it's right or wrong, I would pay for that information, because we're brought up with the wrong, we're taught to conserve, right? When people talk about money, it's like, oh no, we can't go on that trip because we don't have the money, or it's not enough, or it's expensive, or it's our relationship with money. But honestly, money is in abundance. It's just we don't know the right vehicle to get them, right? We just don't know the right vehicle to get the $2 million a month. It doesn't mean it doesn't exist. There are people that make money 24/7 without doing anything, and it's just we don't know how to do it. So when you realize, when you talk to the people around you, either they get you or they don't, because their belief of, there's a guy that makes $2 million, but I don't really believe it. You know what I mean? It's so hard to break those beliefs, but you change your beliefs, you upgrade your skills, and you just go on your way, because it is a lonely road and the weight does get heavy sometimes. I've gone through anxiety and depression. I've actually gotten diagnosed for depression and stuff like that, but it's part of the game, right? It's part of the game. You signed up for it. You knew the risks, so you just kind of go. There's no turning back. And if you don't have to take this risk, don't take it, because it's not for everybody, right?
Right. And there's nothing wrong with leading a laid back a life that makes you happy. It is all about what makes you happy, right? I've told my students here as well.
Yeah.
You have two choices. You can be happy and be an average person. That's totally fine, as long as it makes you happy.
Yeah, I think happiness is underrated. So happiness is very, sometimes we might just feel happy and sometimes we might feel sad, right? But underlining happiness should be what can, who says we have to be happy? We don't necessarily have to be happy. We just have to experience life as good or bad. You just try not to go follow that ups and downs, right? You just try to stay in equilibrium, because that's the peace of mind. Because you can never change the world. You can never change your spouse. You can never change your kids. One day your kids might, I don't know, have plans to kill you, you know what I mean? Like, it could be anything. But as long as what happiness is just a peace of state in your mind, and happiness is just having not having that many desires, right? Recently, I was listening to one of my biggest huge fans is Mr. Beast. He's a young kid. If you guys have checked out the channel, it's Mr. Beast. He literally started with nothing, and now he's, I think, worth about $10 billion. And basically, what he says is, you know, with everybody, we get one house, and then we need a bigger house, and then we need a bigger car, and then bigger stuff, so on and so forth. He's like, that's a stupid way to live life. He's like, why don't we just skip all the wanting and just do what's good for humanity, right? And then you don't have to worry about upgrading your life and this and that. And then you attract the people that are in similar contrast, because if you are that kind of person who doesn't splurge, you're not going to attract your partner who splurges as well. You're going to attract partners that would want to do similar activities with you.
You said something very interesting. You said that you don't want to have, if you want to be happy, you don't have too many desires.
Mm-hmm.
Now, how do you connect desire and desire to succeed and desire to make more money with having an equilibrium and a peace of mind?
Yeah, so what really changed, that's actually a good point. I remember when I first started this business in 2016, we were making our temple, the temple in Markham, and then I was given the contract to do the HVAC, and
Mm-hmm.
you know, this was my first commercial job, and so on and so forth. And then one day, you know, we're hardworking. I'm hardworking. I have my friends working there. You know, we're technically doing the job for free because that's something that I wanted to do, because something that was dear to me. So we're pulling all our resources and everything just to get the job done. And one day, the person who was on the other phone, it really hurt me, because I think he forgot to hang up the call. So I think it was a pocket dial or something. And when he called me back, he didn't know that he was on the phone. But literally, the guys that I used to respect and have put them so on a pedestal would later, behind my back, would really just talk really bad about me, right?
Mm.
And then, but these are the things that I was doing in order to help. Like in my mind, I'm like, I'm doing this literally for free so that you guys, or we can one day, you know, not have to worry about having issues and, you know, not having a place to congregate and so on and so forth. So I think after that, that really broke me, because these are the people that I used to venerate and people we used to put on pedestal, and then I would hear them talking behind my back how my work is not good, how you know, I would never hire him again, and this and that, right? So I was kind of down, and then one day there was I forget his name, but I can clearly remember he came up to me. I think he saw me that I was off or something, and he said, you know, maybe you're born into this world just to fulfill this, like to actually create this building. Maybe that's all you were born here to do, right? And he's like, no matter what anybody says, don't change don't change your mind, and think of it as still doing a good thing, because this might be the only reason that you're here for. And then that really changed how I started looking at business in general, because to me, it's not about making money. To me, it's about doing the best that I can do. And whether I spend more money or not, to me, it's my name and my reputation. Because I will spend 300, 400, 500K extra to get the job done right. To me, it's not about the money, because to me, reputation is much more, because people talk about your reputation. They don't care about if the job was free or not. Just like my example, they don't care.
Right.
So what you have at the end is your brand and your reputation, and you do whatever to protect that brand and your reputation. So even that means, you know, I really don't care about making money. I really care about doing a good service, and the result might be making money.
Right. Thank you. Now, it looks like that you used to read a lot. Or I think you still are. When people graduate, they tend to stop learning. How did you keep your desire to learn? How do you keep it up?
So anything that I was, when I went to the internet, so I used to listen to Warren Buffett and Charlie Munger and all these guys, and all they say is they read like 800 pages a day. And I was thinking it was so hard for me to start reading because I never used to read it. Just because you're not used to reading because you read the wrong stuff, right? You read about things that are fiction or whatever, the things that don't interest you. That's the issue, right? We need to start reading about things that interest us, because then you don't think you're studying. You're just grabbing all that knowledge right away, right? So for me, it was all these great mentors that talked about how you should be reading at least a book a day. And I had my friends who were reading as well, and they were so highly educated, they were literate, and it's something that I kind of looked up to. And it was, in the beginning, it was hard for me because I would read a line and then I would understand. I would reread lines over and over and over again, but that's just because you're not used to it. It's a skill that you haven't learned yet, so you have to be patient, and you just kind of need to learn first. And I think university, what it teaches you, a lot of people downgrade university, say you don't need a degree, but what university teaches you is, it teaches you to write, then it teaches you to read, and then it teaches you how to learn, right? Because if we don't know how to learn, it's hard for us to gain knowledge in anything, right? Because the world is fast changing. So if you don't actually like learning, it's very hard. And the thing about a book is, people spend years writing books, and then if you can spend 3-4 hours learning from that book, that means you literally learned 40 years of lessons in less than a couple of hours. So I think that's a huge leverage, and especially with books being available 24/7 on Kindle and stuff like that, I think it's just an untapped skill.
So, but as a young person, you wanted to pursue sexy businesses, such as technology-based businesses or crypto-based. Sometimes AI, of course, these days is a cool thing. That requires you to sit in front of the computer without having to get your hands dirty sometimes.
Yeah.
While sipping a coffee, you don't have to go out when it's snowing. But you want to do a business that in the field. How was it? How were you motivated to do something like that? And is this something that you want to do in the long term?
So I've always had, even when I did undergrad, our labs were basically, go to this, and it was more physical. So I liked the whole moving and being mobile. I know that when we had labs, I never found my time. We were always having time. Finding time was the hardest thing. It was never, because when you're sitting in front of a computer, you're always looking at the clock, and you're just like, okay, I got to get a coffee. I got to go do this, right? By the time you're done, you've drunk 10 coffees and only an hour has passed, right? So the thing about field is, one, it gets you active. So I like being active. I like being on my feet. But in terms of a sexy business, I think with any business, you have to know everything from start to end, because if you can't, I think if you have what a business is, the most precious resource, if I was to ask you, what do you think it is for you? What's your answer? If I was to ask you, what's the most precious resource that you have?
Time.
Yeah. So once you realize that it's your time, you do everything in your power to get that time back. So in order to do that, you have to replace yourself with systems, a bunch of series systems. So in order to do that, you got to understand a process from start to end. If you don't know that, it's hard for you to create a business or steps in order to replace you. So I think that's the first thing, realizing that time is of utmost value to you. And your job as an entrepreneur is to get that time back, to do more productive work, or to not have to do anything, right? So that's the first thing in order to do that. And I felt like I knew the industry enough with my experience in engineering, because I did project engineering at CNO, worked with my dad, so I knew the technician side. So it wasn't sexy to go in and start getting my hands dirty, but if you make it a problem, it will be a problem. To me, it wasn't a problem.
Right. Yeah. And some business specific questions for the listeners who may want to get into
Yes, that's an interesting
HVAC
topic. Yeah.
construction business. So tell me, what's your business about?
So we're a HVAC contractor, so heating, ventilation, and air conditioning. So we do residential construction and commercial. And what's really important is, in order to put a process in place, you need jobs, you need work, because you need to employ people. The best way to do that, it's a lot harder in residential because you have to get your marketing and your sales and everything done right for a one-day job. So it's very difficult for residential jobs, but it gets a lot better in commercial. Not to say it's easier, but the process in putting things in place, it's a lot easier and much more clearer, right? So if I started with estimating in the beginning, now I would know exactly what to do. I would put someone in place to do the estimation. So all of a sudden, now I've given, instead of putting 40 hours, now I'm gifted with 40 hours back. So now I'm thinking about running the jobs. Now, instead of running the job, I get a project manager and an engineering. Make sure the engineering aspect of all the installations are according to spec. And project management, make sure the job is under budget and within schedule. I would spend hours doing that. Once I hire those two, I get those 80 hours back, right? So that's kind of what we do. So we do project management and construction in the HVAC industry.
Okay, right. Thank you. I like the expression that you used. Once you hire a person, you're getting 40 hours to yourself. Yeah. Rather towards you. Mm-hmm. Right? When you hire person number 2, person number 3, that it keeps adding up. Yeah, and the more people you hire, you can only technically get back 40 hours back, which is your working hours. But at one point, you will start getting back leveraged, right? So what leverage is the discrepancy between a system, between inputs and outputs, right? So if you can use media, for example, if we're using media, we make this media one time, we might spend about 2 hours for editing and everything. Well, once we put on YouTube, it's evergreen. It's going to be there for a lifetime, right? So that's a leverage, using YouTube as leverage, right? Because we spend 2 hours doing this and it's ever there. It's there for maybe your children, right? So yeah, there'll come to a point where you will get all your time back, but then you have to be a creator to find more where you can, where the gaps are in the marketplace, so you can, start filling those gaps, for example. So without having that time to just sit down and just think clearly and not have to answer a phone every single time someone calls you, it gives you more time to think clearly, and that's the most important thing. And I think people are distracted. We have so much distraction with social media and everything. It's just hard to focus. How do you keep how do you maintain your focus? That's not relevant to your business, but being an entrepreneur, trying to be, being a successful person, how do you keep yourself focused? So I think with anything right now, you're always attracted to the sexy, like you said, the Bitcoins and Ethereum, whatever it is. It's so hard to keep focused because you feel like, oh, someone made money, so maybe I should try that. It's very hard to be that, and it's a very common syndrome, but you just have to be like, you're jumping into a newer field. The learning curve is still there. So stay in the field that you're in and just learn the learning curve at much faster rate, and then you can skip, you just keep laser focused on having that one problem and one product, and then you just kind of figure out how to get it out to your clients, your ideal market. Right. Another question most of the people in the construction industry, even could be a digital industry like us as well, have is, how do you find commercial business? Is it tough to find commercial business? Is it worthwhile to do commercial business? Do you get paid on a timely fashion? Are you on the hook for so long time if you don't get paid on time, and the margins are crazy? As well, you had to go through portals, a bidding go, all of that, and keep trying, submit massive RFPs. How do you find that? No, what does the experience look like?
Yeah, so getting government, like I said, when you go into the commercial sector, there are hurdles that you have to pass, right? One is you have to be literate. You have to be okay with reading like 200-page documents and picking out exactly what you need to do, right? So that requires a lot of reading and just being patient. And yes, it is worthwhile because you don't have that competition, because you have to always think about, okay, what can I do that other guys don't have the time to do? Everybody in the industry that I have, they're either trying to figure out technology or they're just trying to, they're stuck on the field, right? They don't have the time to learn something else. So if you're at a high advantage and if you like reading, again, if you're in this industry, you have to read. You read and then you're able to go through a 200 now, like all my estimators, with the stuff that I've taught them, like 200-page document, they can go through that in like 5 minutes, because it's just about figuring out where the information is hidden, right? Mm-hmm. So yeah, it's definitely worth it. We'll put a link, because I do help out a lot of my friends who are starting businesses, so it's the same thing. They ask me, how did you get into commercial? Tell me how, and this and that. So we'll put a link down. I've created this landing page, so if we get enough interest of people that want to learn about getting jobs with the government and RFPs and RFQs and all of that, maybe we'll put out something. And but I want to see if there's interest first before the PDF or the document is not complete. But as soon as there's interest, we'll start going on it.
Thanks. Construction industry in Toronto, GTA, expanded into 519 and 905 areas. Mm-hmm. Seems to be an unstoppable exponential growth. Does it look like it's going to stop anytime soon or slow down anytime soon? What are your thoughts about that for anyone who wants to get into that industry?
Yeah, I think there's no right time to get in a business. I think interest rates plays a big part in it, because interest rates, when they go up, money becomes expensive. You can't get the money, and so on and so forth, right? So it all depends. I think if you know, it's hard to do business at a margin. So if you're looking to do jobs that are just scraping, right now you might need to buy jobs because you might need to pay off your loans and your debts and this and that. So you might even not make money on some jobs, but you'll take it, right? But you have to be careful who you get the jobs from, because if one company goes under, they don't have to pay you because everybody is incorporated. So it's just a different entity. So make sure before you start paying your suppliers and this and that. We do struggle with getting payments, because when our admin calls and say, where's the check? They say we haven't gotten paid. So yeah, there are times that you have to carry cash for about 6 to 9 months, but depending on how big it is, right? So always commercial, make sure the end client is reputable and recognized, because if you're working for guys that are just barely making it, you might not get paid at the end.
Right. And what are the things that what are the things that you have to look out for in terms of building relationships in the construction industry? I've heard that construction industry is very dynamic in terms of personal relationships. Is it true for you? You are going into commercial construction from completely new approach. You didn't have your parents doing business in the industry, commercial industry. Mm-hmm. How did you tackle that? And what are the things that you should be looking for? And is construction industry, in GTA at least, relationship based only?
You have to really be careful with people that are too friendly, because you have to understand that someone's friendly because they want something from you, right? So sometimes you can be nice and stuff like that, but the ones that you have to be careful is the ones that say everything is okay, don't worry about it, everything's fine, and then everything's not fine, right? Because they hide everything under the rug and whatever the case might be. So the more vigilant you are in knowing your strength as a business, saying that, like, we walk into negotiations all the time, and if you have enough jobs, you don't have to worry about ever saying yes to a job that's really bad, right? So we'll say no to jobs all the time. It's because we have we don't care about not picking up some jobs, right? We're okay because I know in a few weeks we'll get more jobs and more work and stuff like that. But in construction, I think in Canada, it is booming. It is somewhat relationship based, but then again, you have to be competitive. Doesn't matter if you are the lowest, you still have to be competitive. You still have to, like, we work with low budgets, right? And we're doing the same amount as big mechanical contractors that are in their 6, 7, 8 figures, right? So when you're battling those kind of guys, you have to make sure that everyone's more or less trying to eat from the same plate, right? So they'll be nice to you till you're in trouble. If not, then they'll take you to the cleaners.
Right. You have tried different versions of the business, or you have been a different. You have worn different hats, from being an engineer to an entrepreneur and being the head technician. Now I feel like you are more of a marketer and a technology enthusiast and a content creator.
Yeah.
What's the true version of yourself?
So when you look at guys like Mr. Beast, Kardashians, they've built this massive following, attention, because the new age of currency is attention, right? If you can carry attention, that means you have currency. You can wake up in the morning and you can go into your following and say, hey, you guys buy this, and they'll buy it, right? It's because you have that attention. So attention is the new black oil. So if you can, and the truth of the fact of the matter is that you can create anything, even though you might not have big followings. Even if you're creating, you will get the attention of the right people, right? So if you like paintings and you throw up landscapes and stuff like that, it might take you 4 or 5 pictures to put up, and someone will call you or message you and be like, hey, can I use your painting as murals, right? Because you have to understand that just because you take a certain view for granted, it's not in Iraq or Iran. They don't have that, right? So if someone who's trying to make it, they might pay you something a little bit and then try to get the rights to your painting, right? So those things do happen all the time. That was a prime example that happened to me, so that's why I know. And I don't have a big following. I have like 300 people. But creating content is very important, because if it's not the best product that gets highlighted, it's the most talked about, right? So if you can create the fact that we know about Tesla and not about Rivian, right? Both companies that are electric, but why is Tesla more known? Because you have that brand, which is Elon Musk. He has that brand, and he makes sure that he is the brand, right?
Right.
So now these days, people buy because of a relationship rather than a logo or, Amazon. There's customer service, but at the end, Jeff Bezos is the face of the company, right?
Right.
So I think eventually people need to go from creating blogs and stuff like that to actually going on camera and saying, hey, this is my life story. This is my life story, and I hope it helps you as well, because this is what I went through, right? And I think it really grabs people by emotions, and that's the best way to, I don't want to say sell, but get through to your ideal client, because people have a lot more information than they did before. So if you're saying you got your 4.9 out of 5 in Google, people are going to search you up. And if you're not, like, your brand is ruined.
Right. From being an engineer to a marketer or an influencer, and also being a camera shy person, how did you break out from the natural self to come in front of the camera?
Yeah, so
I had the same problem as well sometime from the school. I wanted to be in the stage, but I'm like, I have a stage fear. How do you manage that?
Yeah, so stage fear is actually one of, people say, I rather not go on stage. I rather die than go on stage. It's right. That kind of frightening, right? But really helped me was when I heard somebody say, you're forgotten after six days of you passing away. Once you die, in 6 days, you're forgotten. And another saying is, in your 20s, you worry about what people think, and in 40s, you don't really care about what people think, and in your 60s, you realize that no one really was thinking about you, right? Mm-hmm. So no one, when you walk into the gym, when you walk into a grocery store, you feel like everybody's looking at you, right? But everybody feels that. But no one's really watching you. No one's really looking at you. They see you, and you might struggle making content, but as soon as you're done your minute, they scroll you over. You're forgotten in a matter of seconds.
Right.
So I put out like things that are so I would have to think about putting, but I just put it because once I can get over those fears, it's just how many fears can you get over before you can actually feel comfortable in that fear, right?
Right.
Yeah, so I can put out anything and I won't feel scared because I've just gotten used to posting, and people, because sometimes we really care about what people think, right? If someone says, yeah, you're fake or you're this, it might get to you, right? But it really shouldn't, because you actually are, in the grand scheme of things, we're just a speck of dust, right? We don't mean anything, right? Yeah. So in the grand scheme of things, we're just a small little dust. So why can't we? Why should anyone's opinion stop us from really putting our word out there?
And on top of that, if you're sharing something good, it doesn't have to be perfect, and it's something impactful, positively impactful. Of course, there are lots of people putting out lots of negative impactful things, right? But as long as you are doing that, whether you are doing it nicely or very nicely, cool.
Yeah, I think you have to really answer the question, why should people listen to you?
Right.
If you can answer that question, you can boil it down to the content that you will produce, right? If you're a mortgage broker, you shouldn't be talking about HVAC, because I can probably talk about HVAC better than the mortgage broker, right? So mortgage brokers, what value is he putting in the marketplace? And that's all you should be focusing on. And you have to be very careful not to deter from that. So if you're a mortgage broker, you shouldn't be talking about lawyer stuff and maybe not interest rates or whatever it is, right? So you have to really answer the question, why should anybody listen to you? So if you haven't done cool, quote unquote cool stuff, right? If you haven't started a company like you, if you haven't started, like you did your MBA, you have kids, you have all these by the age, like you're less than 40, right? So you've done all those cool things, but you can actually talk about an entrepreneur's journey, going to Schulich, starting a business, your parents not supporting. Like your story is very, very unique, and it's very relatable because a lot of people are in that situation. They have kids and they're trying to start their business, and now you become their role model because you've done it, and that's why people should listen to you.
Mm-hmm. Right? Thank you. Actually, that's a great takeaway for myself as well.
Yeah. Not because you own 6 cents. Like, no one cares about Sharpline. No one cares about 6 cents, right? As long as you're solving somebody else's problem, they'll listen to you.
True. That's very powerful. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
What's the turning point of your life? You can, if you want me to reframe it, what's the turning point of your business journey? Either way, what's the turning point? Yeah,
and I think for me, the turning point was really realizing that there's different segments in the market. You don't always have to be the cheapest. You don't have to be it's a race to the bottom. Every time you say, someone says, can you beat that price? I don't want to beat the price, because as soon as I beat the price, you're going to haggle me about this, you're going to haggle me about that. So really what helped me change my perspective is a guy that I really follow closely. His name is Alex Hormozy. He really talks about sales, but really into the not going down the cheapest route, because there's no real benefit being the second lowest in the marketplace, right? Or you have to be the lowest, or you have to be the most expensive. So you can be the most expensive, and we just don't know how to be the most expensive. Not that we can't, right? So you just have to learn the skills to have your offer so expensive, or to the point where people can't distinguish between the lowest and the highest. Like, for example, when I quote my furnaces or heat pumps, I give them free thermostat, free humidifier, and sometimes I make sure my technician goes and literally scan the place out, and then they have notes, and I sell them things that they don't even know that their house needs, right? So at the end, someone got a quote for an air conditioner for $4,000, but mine might be $8,000, but I've included all these things that their house might need, that they have no idea. Who do you think they're going to go with, right? So it's just different tactics that you can really learn to really perceive your product a lot more than what they actually are.
And perception is your brand too.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
We talked about the other day as well. I think I don't remember the name of the brand guru who talks about it. Anyway, it's the brand changes based on the perception or your target market.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. And it's very similar. Like when you and we were deciding what to wear, and we had the conversation. We might be something else outside the mic, but in here, this is our brand, right?
Right.
The way we dress, the way we speak, the way everything is. You're struggling to get the best mic. I'm struggling to get the best video cameras, right? It all comes into one thing, which is how do you want other people to perceive you as?
Right.
Right.
What are the going to the last part of the conversation, just to wrap up our conversation, there are a few questions. What are the unique qualities that you have to practice to pursue your dreams? Do you have to do a lot of changes to your everyday life? Or what are give me 5 things that you do to succeed or to get where you are right now?
Yeah, so I think success really depends on how you define it, because success to my sister is very different than success to me, right? So my sister, she's a Buddhist nun, and her success is probably meditating for 2 hours, right? My success is a little bit different. So you first have to define what success means to you. And second is just doing the daily things that you don't want to do. You have to pick up the phone call and make phone calls, right? If you want to get your sales up, you have to learn how to run ads. You have to learn how to do landing pages. You have to learn how to do, learn about different segmentations of the market. Like there's a cold audience, warm, hot. How do you get them? What messages you need in order to attract them? What are baits? What freebies can you do in order to do a higher conversion? So all those things you have to not only learn. Some people have the wrong information, so get the right information. And then the other part is the information paralysis, right? So people stay on information so long and they think more information is gonna help them. But the actual reality is you have enough information, you just got to execute. And execution is the hardest part. All right.
Right.
So sometimes you don't have to wake up in the morning, you don't have to but you have to do the work, right? If you need to make a call between the hours of 6 and 8 a.m., you have to wake up and do it. Most of it is just showing up, right? A lot of people can't show up. And I've lost so many deals because I didn't show up, because I was lazy, because I didn't wake up, right? But a lot of it is if you show up, if you say you're going to be there on that time, you just show up. And I think that's the most underrated thing that you can do, is to actually set your alarm and just to show up. You might not even need to be prepared. Just showing up is 60% of the job completed.
Right. Did you have to make any sacrifices to get where you are right now?
I think, you have to, you pick and choose what you have to give up. Sometimes it might be going out with your friends. Sometimes it might be the parties that you always wanted to go to. It might just saying on a Friday when you are really tired and just saying, you know what, no, I gotta do a few more rounds of calls, right? So it's just saying no to the harder things that you would typically say yes to, and it's just really conserving your time, right? Because why did you start? It's to conserve your... Some people will stay 2 hours on a Costco gas line. I can't understand the logic behind that because I'd rather pay extra $20 to pump and go. Sometimes, if there's no guy, sometimes if I have to hold the handle, I don't even go to that place because I'm outside holding it, because while I'm doing that, I can literally click it on, I can go back into my car and I would start creating content, right? So even that 5 minutes to me is important to me. But some guys will stand hours in lines and I don't understand it. So again, it's the perspective you got to change, right? It's not about saving $1 here and there. And it's just erasing all that and saying, hey, give your time a dollar value. And I learned this from Naval Ravikant. He's one of the serial entrepreneurs in the Silicon Valley. When he first started because he was getting a lot of calls and meetings and stuff like that, he said, my hour is $5,000 per hour.
Right.
And he said, anything that doesn't justify that he's cutting everything out. So he would get like a coffee talk and someone would say, and he would say, okay, I would spend 2 hours. So does that really, can I get $10,000 worth of value? Right. And if the answer was no, he would cut it off. So that way you really hone down on exactly your time, because your time is the most important as an entrepreneur, because you're a creator. That's essentially what you are.
Right.
So the more time you have, the more time that you can really sit down and really think about your process and everything else.
You got to be ruthless with your time.
Yeah. You have to be really careful because people, you just have to really be mindful of every minute that you have, because it's a minute that's taken away from the work that you can do, right? I'm not saying you can't have fun. I mean, allocate time for all that because you need to release and depressed, but at the same time remember why you started what you did.
Right. Now you talked a lot about the books that you read, people that you listened to, success stories or successful individuals that you listen to or follow. Who are the top 5, let's say top 10?
I have to say Alex Hormoz is top for sales, and there's another guy called Russell Brunson. He really talks about changing your beliefs. So he studied how all these mass movements are created, and he breaks it down into, even if you talk to Avengers, the guys who did Avengers and stuff like that. So he really breaks down he puts it into a framework where you could use it in stories where you can help people break their beliefs and rebuild new ones, but at the same time, like, how to have a attractive character, right? Because people listen to us because we should have attractive character. Either we need to be funny, or we need to provide value, or we need to be a leader, or we need to have a struggle that people are going through, right? So it's when you highlight these things, people tend to connect with you. So that's a really good book, Russell Brunson's. And actually down here, Persuasion by Robert Cialdini. So these are all psychological books. So this one here is actually a really good book, Persuasion by Robert Cialdini. So he's a PhD psychologist, and he has multiple books. Basically, he just talks about why people buy, like what it is, how are we wired, like as humans, how do we interact, how do we and they talk about a lot of tests and stuff that they've done in order to persuade. So that's another book, and I think if you want to learn about processes, there's a book called Work the System by Sam Carpenter. I think that's a really good book. And I think any biography, so if you especially Albert Einstein or Nikola Tesla, because when you read about these books like Nikola Tesla, Rockefeller, and the guys who built the the Iron, I forget his name, but all those guys, you think about what's possible, right? It changes your beliefs, because half the guys, Albert Einstein was called, like, he was troubled, right? But at the same time, he was one of the greatest inventors. So when you read about biographies, I think it really shapes how you think about life and about things in general.
That's phenomenal. Thank you, Subodha. In terms of number of books that you've read, how many have you read, do you think? I'm very inspired by the number of books that you've read and the wealth of knowledge that you have. I ask the question, sometimes when people graduate, they stop learning. I feel like I didn't stop learning, but I got so busy running day to day.
Yeah.
And I missed out on learning, and I feel like there's more. I have the bandwidth, I can capture more, but I'm not doing it. I'm not doing enough research.
Yeah, and I think, like I said, like once you figure out what interests you, what you can actually absorb, then, not reading becomes something that you really dread, because I don't watch TV, I don't watch entertainment, but I do find entertainment in books, right? So that's another thing. So, and I was never like that, but I do find a lot interesting stuff in books rather than in movies or if anything out there, right? In terms of the number of books, I think, sometimes I don't read everything because if it doesn't capture what I need to, I won't read it. But, yeah, probably 200, 300 books.
That's
overall.
impressive.
Yeah.
Have you read the summaries of the books? Do you listen to audiobooks, or do you read the actual books? I mean, this is another book that I know I really like. My brother gave it to me, Adam Grant, Think Again, a phenomenal book.
That's
I'm still reading through it. And I like the smell of the paper when you're going through them. All right, it's amazing.
Yeah.
Well, what do you do? I'm a digital person. At least 12 hours a day. I hate going through another Kobo reader.
Yeah. So I'm quite the opposite, because I can carry like 1,000 books on the palm of my hands, right? I mean, that's probably a good intro for Kindle. But yeah, I read a lot. So everything that is here, I can't carry this many books if I was to travel, right?
Right.
And I do get the whole thing, like it's nice to hold a book and this and that, but at the end, to me, it's just like, I just want to get the reading done,
Right.
So it's whatever I can, like I said, like sometimes I don't read everything from front to back. I just skim through it. If it doesn't interest me or if it doesn't answer my question, I'll leave it and I'll open another book, because I'm usually, when I read a book, is to look for an answer, right? Because I have so many problems in my head, and I'm like, maybe I'm doing it different. Let me just see, like, the guys that I read, what do they say about this, right? So I would read about that, and then and that's why it's important to have your time, because you don't want people to call you every time that they remember something that they want to ask you, right? So even everybody in the company, like, they know not to call me, right? They know that, like, I tell all my guys, you have the privilege, not the privilege, but you can only call me twice. After that, no more questions, right? Because you have to be very greedy with your time.
Right.
Otherwise, it just, it's just hard. It's just very hard.
Right. So it's about cutting through the fluff and getting to the point.
Yeah. And there's, it's better to read like 10 books from front to cover every single day than read like 200 books. Right? Because a lot of stuff that are out there are not the greatest, but the ones that are out there, if you can really, because sometimes when you reread a book, you learn something else.
You get a different perspective.
You get a different perspective, right? Like if I was to read this book now, I would know different things rather than when I first started, right? And another guy I think is really interesting is Claude Hopkins. If anyone's interested to advertising, he's one of the best that change our entire advertisement career, and those are the guys that there was problems in America when we had too much oranges. Maybe it's not Claude Hopkins, maybe it was another guy. But the problem was there was too many oranges and they couldn't sell it, right? So what he came out, usually we would probably try to sell the oranges, right? But these guys were like, okay, that's the problem. Let me get like orange peeler that I can give for free, and as a secondary item I can give them the oranges. So everyone bought these peelers for free. They got these peelers for free, but they just had to pay a little bit more to get the oranges. So that's actually how the campaign of orange is healthy for you actually came, right? It's not actually that oranges are good for you. Maybe they might be, but it's actually the marketing. It's always the marketing that changes products, right? Another reason is Dove, the soap, right?
Right.
They were in a tight market, and they didn't just say, hey, buy soap. All they said was, hey, Dove is like, it's a moisturizer, right? Oh, by the way, it also cleans like soap.
Right.
So it's just those little subtle things you can literally take and plug it into your business, right? There's so many things I just take out and plug it in, and it just changes the conversions drastically.
Right.
Yeah.
How many pages do you read a day?
Not enough. Not enough. Yeah.
Well, let me rephrase the question. How many pages do you think someone who wants to grow or be better in life should read? Of course, there's no magic number.
Yeah, there's no magic number. I think if you're looking to get information rather than just reading, because a lot of people just read for entertainment, because reading can be entertaining, right? You can read this book and it's very entertaining, but you might not take anything out of it, right? So it all depends on what question are you trying to answer, right? As soon as I get my answer, I close the book and I'm implementing. A lot of people have a lot of information, but they don't implement. Sometimes I'm in my bed and I find the answer. I'll get up and I'll go to my computer and I'll do it. So it's those, not the big things, it's the little things, like getting up out of your bed, when it's cold outside and everyone's ready to get to bed, you just wake up because you just found a solution to your puzzle.
Right.
Right.
What keeps people from growing in general? And what are the advice that you can give to overcome those obstacles that you are going to mention?
I think having a not knowing, right? Always being curious. It's a curious mind. I mean, it's a curious mind that always figures out that there is what's possible, right? I think that's the most important thing. You have to be curious. If you're not curious, there's no books in the world can help you, because you're just reading, right? And there are a lot of people that probably read more than me, but it's, you either read for entertainment or you read to find out answers, right?
Right. So, the last question. What future holds for Subodha Senevirathne?
So like I said, I don't know if I said it, but I'm born in Sri Lanka, middle class. When we came here, we didn't have anything. But over the years, I've traveled to India, Qatar, South America, just all over the world, and I see the amount of. I really feel that we're one of the lucky people to ever walk on this earth, right? And there are a lot of unfortunate people that are, they can't find their next meal. And, when you talk to people, Sri Lanka is very dear to me, and, people say, hey, it can be solved, or, it's gone to, excuse my language, it's gone to shits, right? They say you can't help Sri Lanka, it's corruption and this and that. But what if everyone thought that way, right? It's not about people that say that, they just don't have the answer. Doesn't mean it can't be done, right? People that say, oh, Sri Lanka, you can't help Sri Lanka, it's just because they just don't know, right, how to help it. So, there are people that change countries over things because they just believe. If you don't believe that you can change something, I mean, so I feel like we're fortunate, and it's our duty to really offer the hand for the people that are in need. And it's not just in Sri Lanka, it's all over the world. And it's just doing more, right? You're just giving more. And I think that really drives me, because when I see people achieving their dreams, and if I have helped them achieve that, I feel more than grateful. Rather than, it's not all about the money. If I can show somebody, the fact that I can show somebody a blueprint and they can implement it in their business and they can 10x their revenue, that to me that's because I've given them a gift, or I've given them something that they didn't know before, but now their life has changed dramatically, right? Mm-hmm. So it's those little frameworks that I try to learn myself and then try to draft it so that people can shortcut their way to success, quote unquote success. But at the same time, I think more people that are willing to give, the more the world will be a happier place, right?
Thank you, Subodha. This is the longest episode in our Sixcast, and I think, no offense to the previous attendees, this is probably the most inspiring and one of the best I've done. I hope the future attendees beat you. This is so inspiring. The wealth of knowledge that you have, especially at a younger age, is amazing. Fulfilling conversation. Thank you so much for your time. I hope we can do more of this in the future. And the learning, lots of takeaways from this conversation. We will try to put out as much content as we can. Maybe make it to like short snippets and put it out. This is amazing. I truly kudos to what you have achieved and your beliefs and who you are. I didn't know you. We were friends for the longest time, but I didn't know the amount of knowledge and the character that you have. So well done. And,
thank you for inviting me, Waruna, and it's always a great pleasure. And it's always, a lot of the stuff that I'm giving back is stuff that I learned from you guys as well. We have a great crowd at the temple. A lot of what was really fortunate for me is I was the youngest guy in your group of friends, right? Mm-hmm. So my brother is older than me, everybody's older than me, so I was never in a environment where I couldn't learn from everyone. You did an MBA, my brother did an MBA, so I got exposed to GMAT early on. I did the GMAT as well, and I think you did it too, right? Obviously you did it. Okay. I did a GMAT. I mean, I didn't need to do GMAT, but GMAT is one of the best tests that you can ever study for.
Yeah.
If you study for GMAT, you will be well off. Like the amount of, when someone sends me an email, I will know right off the bat if where they are in their literacy level, right? Yeah. And before GMAT, my English was poor. I couldn't write. We don't really know because that's not interesting to me. But when you have a GMAT to write for, you're learning everything from sentence structure to you polish everything. So once you have that equipped. So going back, then I had so many mentors like you guys and even all the other guys we have a guy who's a VP or CEO at Berkshire Hathaway, right? Yeah. So when you have guys surrounded by guys like that, it's impossible you don't want to be subpar, It's just surrounding yourself with...
Keep pushing.
With the great guys that are around, because they never let you. And that's the thing about, I think, that we lack in Canada. Yeah. Is and it's another thing, like my personal life, when I meet the guys that went to school with me back home, they have this brotherhood. They're always looking out for you, and they always want you to do better, even if it's better than them. They always want you to do more, right? Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. So it's that I got from you guys, and it's just, whenever I can pick up my phone call and say, I have a bad day, we can go out, we'll grab ice cream, right? Mm-hmm. And it's that, and it's just kind of getting away from the, the drinking and the drugs and all of that, and really being around a group of people who have a different view of life, right? Because
Which
we
is
don't
fully
go up.
supported, hugely supported by the temple
Yeah.
into
Yeah,
Buddhist
yeah.
teachings. I totally agree with that too. And I was going through some of the pictures trying to dig out a photo of you. I came across a photo of that all of us were sitting in 2011 trip to Quebec. We were sitting in the staircase. That has different other stories attached to that picture as well. I'm looking at this guy. This guy is this person, and this guy is higher up in Amazon. This guy is an MBA. Has 6 or 7 titles behind his name on LinkedIn.
Yeah.
Oh, this guy is a director at this place. And I'm so happy that it was a culture that created we had a culture that was conducive to growth and upliftment and do better and be better and happy.
Yeah. And it comes from, a lot of people's, I think, behavioral, and everything comes from the people that they associate, right? Like, if you, for example, if you have daughters, if you don't give them the proper, so this is completely different. So say that your daughter grows up, not your daughter, but a daughter grows up in a society where, not a society, at the home where the mom and the dad are always arguing, and the dad beats the mom and so on and so forth. This is what the little girl, when she's little, this is what she's absorbing, right? When she goes out into the world, she's not necessarily going to pick the right partner for her. She's only going to pick the person that she's comfortable with, which is her dad. So she's highly likely to pick somebody who's going to beat her in the future, right? This daughter. So it's very important who you surround yourself with. Like I mentioned in the beginning, like if you're talking about net worth, your net worth is the 5 people that you associate, right? And it's the same thing with traits, character beliefs, and the skill set, right? If we hang around people that can, barely, they're not gonna, either they're gonna drop themselves, or we're just gonna find a different people to hang around with, and that's just how society works, right? So if you're trying to be an entrepreneur, or you gotta listen to entrepreneurs and be around entrepreneurs, and it's, as basic as that might sound, it's just what it is.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Subodha. It was a phenomenal conversation. I loved every bit of it. Thank you very much, and wish you all the best, and hope we can continue our friendship and keep growing together.
Yeah, for sure. Thank you for having me, and good luck with everything. And hopefully we can do your cast maybe some other time.
Sure, for sure.
Yeah. Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, Waruna. Thank you. Take care.
Bye.
Bye.
Thanks for listening to this week's episode of the Sixcast. We'd love to connect with you, so feel free to comment or reshare. You can also find us on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, and LinkedIn at Six Senses. Bye for now.